Hello, Sarah. Can you hear me okay?
Confirming, yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Gorodnick, Chair of the City Planning Commission and Director of the Department of City Planning. Welcome to today's public hearing. We have a fairly short agenda today, focusing mainly on 3 public hearings. We'll start with a proposed residential development at 2185 Coyle Street in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. Located near the B3, B31, and BM4 buses and Marine Park. The building would create over 430 homes, nearly 110 of them income restricted, as well as ground floor retail. Sheepshead Bay being the place where my mother grew up and where I spent a lot of time in my childhood as well. Our next hearing will be on 854 Fifth Avenue. This Upper East Side landmark that served as a United Nations permanent mission site is looking to convert into a private members club with guest rooms for overnight stays. As part of this proposal, the applicant will repair and restore key historic features of the building. Finally, the public is invited to testify on the demapping of a street at 4939 Van Dam Street. This unutilized area adjacent to the Long Island Expressway on-ramp would be removed from the city map to make room for an outdoor eating and drinking area as part of a conversion of a warehouse space for a restaurant use. So, with that, let's get started. Saki, the floor is yours.
Good morning. This is the City Planning Commission public meeting held remotely through the NYC Engage portal and in person in the CPC hearing room, 120 Broadway, Lower Concourse. Today is Wednesday, November 20, 2024. I will now call the roll. Chair Gorodnick.
Here.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Here.
Commissioner Benjamin. Commissioner Cerullo.
Here.
Commissioner Kroll.
Present.
Commissioner Dweck. Commissioner Gold.
Here.
Commissioner Goodrich. Commissioner Kermani.
Here.
Commissioner Mann.
Here.
Commissioner Marin.
Here.
Commissioner Osorio.
Here.
Commissioner Ramprashad is absent. A quorum is present. The first item is the approval of minutes of the public meeting of Wednesday, November 6th, 2024.
Okay, on the minutes, I make a motion to approve the minutes of November 6th. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Sorry, I forgot to give a moment for our good friends on Zoom. All those opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you.
Scheduling. Calendar numbers 1 through 11, scheduling Wednesday, December 4th, 2024, for a public hearing to be held in person in the CPC hearing room, 120 Broadway, and remotely through the NYC Engage portal. We are going to move to the public hearing section on page 7.
Great. All right. As we move to the public hearings, we're going to hear from applicants, applicant teams, members of the public. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. And with that, Madam Secretary, let's call the first item.
Borough of Brooklyn, calendar numbers 12 and 13, 2185 Coyle Street, CD 15, calendar number 12, C230248, ZMK, calendar number 13, C230249, ZRK, public hearing in the matter of applications for a zoning map and text amendments concerning 2185 Coyle Street.
Great. Thank you very much. And on this item, I have Richard Bass standing at the podium and also John Wolfling, who is here, part of your team or separate? Okay, got it. All right, just wanted to, okay, terrific. So whenever you are ready, just make sure that microphone is on by hitting the button at the base of the microphone, and then please proceed.
I should know how to do this by now.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. I'm Richard Bass. I'm with Ackerman. I represent the applicant. This is a 96,000 square foot lot. It's a closed supermarket. It's between Avenues V, Bragg, Coyle, and just south of Avenue U. This is a typical land use map. What a vacant supermarket looks like. This is the important things. We're changing the R4 C12 to a mixture of R6A, R7A, R7X, all with a C24 overlay. So this is a zoning map amendment, and we're also amending the zoning text to make it an MIH area. This also is important. It shows the proposed rezoning, but also shows recent rezonings that this commission and the city council approved across the street on on Coyle Street and Avenue V. This is what the zoning map will look like in the future. This is the approval across the street on Coyle. This is the Avenue V approval. This is what our project would be. It's a mixture of the 3 zoning districts. It's an average of 4.4 FAR. It's a little over 400,000 square feet. We're providing more parking than the minimum. The community board voted in favor of the application. The 12 votes against wanted one-to-one parking, which we can't provide. Even some of the board members who voted in favor told me afterwards they were concerned that we weren't providing enough parking. So we're providing a little bit more than the minimum. I know the borough president wants us to do less parking, so I'm describing the rock and the hard place, and we're trying to be sensitive to both. We're proposing 43,000 and change commercial. We'd like to reestablish a supermarket. Of course, we would take advantage of the tax incentives for a supermarket. This is not a fresh area for the height or FAR. This is what the ground floor looks like. This is what the plan looks like in massing. We tried to do a mixture between 4 and 9-story buildings, so you wouldn't have a boring contiguous wall. This is what it looks like in plan. The building, the short building to the left of ours is actually one of the areas that was recently rezoned. That's a 9-story building proposed. And across the street on Coyle, to the left of our project, is a 6-7-story building. This is, again, what it looks like in scale. Where that car is on the left side of the screen is where the new building on Avenue V. We're committing to women and minority contractors. We will enter into a partnership with 32BJ. This is the breakdown of the MIH and the market rate buildings, market rate units. We tried to do on the 109 affordable units to do deep affordability, so more of the units are at 40% AMI. Again, at the 25% option 1 option, it's an average of 60% AMI, so we tried to do lower AMI with a little bit higher. But again, this can be worked out as we get to HPD.
Time?
If I could just answer some of the questions.
We'll tee up your opportunity to answer a couple questions and to finish up here.
I'm done.
Tell us what remained in the presentation.
This was it.
This was it. Great. Okay, so let me just go back for a second. If you could contextualize this for us a little bit. You did it in the deck, but it was fast because you were under the gun. Can you just put us in context with what has happened previously in the area? I think you had a specific slide on that.
Well, first of all, this community board is last in housing production and affordable housing production in the entire city. So a lot of the zoning, the R4 and R5 that you see was mapped in 1961 and actually studied in the late 50s. So we're looking at zoning that shrink-wrapped this neighborhood for almost 70 years. So this probably gives you the context. The apartment buildings on the south and east of us, on the south is NYCHA buildings, and on the east are a co-op. They're all 6-story buildings. So it starts to give a contextual envelope that we try to adhere to, so that as you walk down the street, you would have 6-story buildings on your right and on your left-hand side, and unless you're looking straight up, you wouldn't see the setback in some parts of the site going up to 9 stories. Does that answer your question?
It does, and there were some other rezonings that were recently done as well, right. Correct?
Let me show you those. So To the left, where it says R6A and R7D, those are the recent rezonings that the Commission and the City Council approved. We're across the street. We have 3 different zoning designations that are trying to be sensitive to the width of the street and the other built conditions.
Okay, thank you. And note for us, you made a point about the fresh store and access to additional density as opposed to tax incentives. I know that was a recommendation that came out of the borough president. Could you just speak to that for one more moment?
Right. I appreciate the recommendation. We're never going to turn down tax incentives on any project. So yes, we're going to seek the tax incentive for a fresh market here. The supermarket closed almost overnight, and we think that a supermarket would be an appropriate land use at this location.
Okay, thank you. Let me go to Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you. Richard, just give me the rationale again for the multiple residential classifications on this one parcel. Is this for the, does this aid the setbacks?
Well, it's a little bit of density and a little bit of setbacks. The larger envelope allows us greater flexibility, but again, it's more speaking to density. The R7X is a little bit higher than the R7A. Both coil, I don't know if I have a mouse on this, between the R6A and the R7A, that's coil. That's a wide street. At the bottom of the page is Avenue V. That's a wide street. Bragg is on the right-hand side. That's a narrow street. So we try to tailor the zoning districts to correspond with street width, which is a very typical planning concept that you all have seen before. At first, I had proposed one zoning district, and in discussions with staff, it was determined that having it more fine-tuned made better design sense. But again, from the architect's point of view, we could have gone up over 9 stories. We've been talking with this community board and the council member and her predecessor for a very long time. This community board's concern was parking, but they also don't like anything over 9 stories. So we try to be sensitive.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Let me go to Commissioner Benjamin, followed by Commissioner Gold.
Hi, Richard. Good to see you.
Hi, Gail.
I have 2 questions for you. One is, if we go back to the apartment distribution by income.
That one.
Yes. The first issue for me is that the majority of the apartments are studios and 1-bedrooms. And in many districts, what we've been looking for is more family-sized units. And here, there's 13% of the affordable units are family-sized. Is there any way to increase the number of family-sized units? Or can you explain the thinking as to why, with affordable housing, we want to have such an emphasis on studios and 1s?
Well, as you know, this is not a site plan, and so this is a suggestion on what the unit mix will be. And that can change as we discuss things with HPD in terms of the unit size, but the affordable units have to reflect the non-affordable units. So we thought this was the most reasonable breakdown, but we're open to larger size units. The community board, this was not a concern of theirs, and the council member did not express a concern about unit size. So we thought this was the appropriate breakdown. I'm not sure that satisfies your answer, but that's our reasoning.
I mean, I understand that in terms of the design and maximizing apartments generally, that developers like to see 40% studios, 40% 1s, and then 20% split between 2s or more. But it seems to me that our affordable housing, we really need to get to the family-sized units because that seems to be an area where we are the most lacking. So I would ask the developer to go back and look at this distribution, particularly since this is an area in which there's been an out-migration. And that is reflected in the racial equity analysis that suggests that this is an area that has seen out-migration of existing residents and that has a high percentage of residents who are paying more than 1/3 of their income. So this seems like an area that would be appropriate.
I'd be more than happy to share that with my client.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
We're flexible on this. This is a thought in the moment. We've been in the public review for a really long time. Gesundheit. So no, we're not fixed on this unit distribution. And in terms of the racial equity report, understand that the study area is a little gives a skewed result because one, it's low density area. There aren't a lot of multiple dwellings. And where there are multiple dwellings, it's NYCHA housing and a co-op that doesn't really count towards rental housing. So the numbers give a inaccurate or not totally accurate picture. Also, the data that's used for the racial study is several years old, while the AMI levels are 2024 levels. So again, I wish we had a better snapshot in terms of the foundation of your question, but it's skewed, and so I don't have a really good answer for you on that one either.
Okay. I appreciate your taking this to your client, though, and trying to see if there's any way they would be able to increase the kinds of apartments we feel we desperately need. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Gold?
Thanks, Richard. Just a couple of follow-up points or questions. First is, can you talk about where we are on active discussions with the supermarket? Do we think it's likely that we do, successfully get one in there?
The client has been speaking with supermarket people for a while. Because this application took so long, those discussions stopped. Once we have an approval, the discussions will start again. But yes, the client sees a supermarket as a very appropriate use here that would be, would provide a great service to the host community.
And there seems to be genuine interest on the side of the supermarkets, or potentially a supermarket company.
Yes,
able to find folks to have that dialogue.
We actually had supermarket providers contact us and asked us if we failed at this rezoning, could we, be open to reestablishing the supermarket as is.
Got it.
We hope we're going to be successful.
All right, we have a plan B. And then, just a second, it really kind of follows up on the point on the unit mix. It is a little striking that, about 70% of the units are one bedrooms or smaller, and the heavy emphasis on studios. Given it's a neighborhood that, I grew up not far, so I know it well, and I guess you have or used to have the movie theater not too far, but it's a community, right? It's a family neighborhood. And so, to that point, obviously, it makes sense to do, what makes sense from a community standpoint, but from an affordable housing standpoint, I would certainly echo the comments that, to the extent that there's room to have some larger size apartments that would.
Oh, there's absolutely room. And I apologize. I had probably more of a hand on the distribution than the client did. So my bad. My client's very flexible, and I'm looking forward to doing more projects with him because of his flexibility.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me go to Commissioner Osorio, followed by Commissioner Marin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation. And thanks so much for addressing my colleagues' questions. I very much concur with the comments of Commissioner Benjamin and Gold in terms of the need for deeper affordability on the larger apartments. And so I very much appreciate your willingness to consider that. Maybe a quick follow-up question. When do you think that we could perhaps hear a little bit, what the response from your client would be? Is it possible to maybe receive some follow-up documentation in terms of what you think is feasible, et cetera?
I'll speak to my client after this meeting, and I'll respond in writing to the chair.
Thank you. Thank you. I very much appreciate that. The other question that I had was, again, thanks so much for considering the borough president's recommendation regarding the fresh incentive, and your comment about the parking. I'm wondering it's clear that this community, I mean, from the way in which they voted and from the conversations that you referenced, there's a very strong priority set around the amount of parking. But I'm wondering if you can share with us, based on your own analysis, whether those additional parking spots that you're offering beyond the requirement, like what was the rationale for that number? Like, how did you get to that point that you discussed? Is something that you're trying to set, in the middle to sort of like strike sort of like the balance between both?
The short answer is the additional parking spaces could be easily accommodated by the current design. More parking spaces would either require a second level of parking, which would be prohibitively expensive, or we would have to go to lifts, which then requires more attendance. So we found that the number that we came up with made architectural sense, didn't add cost to the project, didn't fully satisfy some members of the community board, but it at least showed good faith of my client that we tried to accommodate their request.
Thank you.
Again, this is a community board that wanted a 1-for-1 parking ratio, which that was a non-starter.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that, and I think that you're right. It's an important conversation that you've addressed very carefully. Just for us to understand, because this is of course a priority of the borough president in areas like this one, and for us at the commission, something that we've taken very seriously in terms of understanding a specific households, families, specific workers that require parking to be able to commute to work. And so I'm just wondering, in terms of understanding better the way in which the conversation is happening on the ground, whether you can share with us whether there was any additional conversations, for example, in terms of the trade-offs. Did your team present to the community board alternatives where the costs associated with the additional parking lots could perhaps sort of like be factored toward increasing the affordability levels? I think that your response may already answer the question in the sense that you're accommodating those additional spots according to what the design already suggests. But I'm wondering if there was a conversation about the trade-offs between additional or deeper affordability versus unrequired parking lots.
The short answer is no. The community board raised no issues on or had no discussion about affordability. Their only concern was more parking. As you know from City of Yes discussions, parking is something that everyone seems to understand really well. I share with the community board that additional parking spaces costs between $60,000 and $100,000 per space, and doesn't require that the residents of the new housing actually park there. So some of this parking could sit vacant. But there was no connection between affordability and parking. They just wanted more parking.
No, thank you. That answers my question. I mean, I think that just in terms of the conversation, and I very much appreciate your candidness in this regard. I think it's an opportunity for us to really think about, as planners, how can we present these types of projects and the balance between required and unrequired parking lot in the context of affordability levels, because of all of the different important facts that you've discussed as you presented the project. Given the fact that this is an area that hasn't seen as much housing development, I think it's our duty to explain, especially in communities where there is such a strong sort of like priority on parking, what are sort of like the longer term compromises that we're making here. But anyway, thank you for that. I just also had a quick follow-up question, or another question on sustainability measures. I know that you're outside of the preliminary 500-year floodplain, but according to the projections, as soon as we start looking at the 2020 projections, you are within the 500-year floodplain, and according to the 2080 projections, you would be affected by the 100-year floodplain. So I'm just wondering if you can share a little bit about whether that's something that you're considering. I know that because you're outside, legally you're not required, but I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how do we anticipate potential inundation here from the coast, but also given the status of stormwater inundation along Avenue V, and which is projected to exacerbate.
The floodplain is an issue that we've raised with our architect, Datner. I've done a number of projects with this architectural firm. They will take extra precautions, anticipating the future, not just today's regulations, in terms of waterproofing and making the building sustainable for any future flood zone increases. I'd like to go back to your parking question. Just as I described that the zoning for this area is a thing of the past from the late 50s, early 60s, the parking ratios is also a thing of the past. And one of the things I discussed with the community board is who knows what parking regulations or utilization will be 15 years from now. So we're trying to be sensitive today, but with an understanding that who knows where we're going to be 15 years from now. Maybe none of us will own cars. When I was in grad school, my transportation professor showed us that owning a car in New York City made no economic sense, that if you just rented a car, or it was before Zipcar, that it was actually more cost-effective borrowing a car or renting a car than owning a car in New York City. So, I'm going to practice for another 10 or 15 years. We'll continue this discussion on parking, but today's snapshot is we're trying to be sensitive.
Thank you. Going back for a second to the question about flooding, is there anything that you can share with us in writing when you circle back in terms of what the architect is considering in terms of adaptation measures?
What I'll do is I'll speak with the architect, and as part of my response on the housing unit breakdown, I'll provide a deeper response to what we would do for future construction.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And if you also don't mind responding a little bit on what would be the energy efficiency standards, whether there will be any renewables on site, and just generally sort of like what is the plan in that regard? I very much would appreciate it, unless there's anything you could say right now or expand on any of these.
Well, I'd rather, rather than wing it, I'll put it in writing, so you have a record of it.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner, let me go to Commissioner. Hang on. We don't have microphones. Never mind. Okay, will you call on yourself? Sure, Commissioner Marin. Thank you, sir. So, Richard, thank you. I just have 2 questions. One it relates to the retail commercial. So we talked about a supermarket. What else is contemplated for the retail spaces that are planned in the C24?
Well, in discussions with the chair of the community board, we spoke about either a satellite medical office, daycare center, or other community supportive retail. What we'd like to see is what's going to happen on the other 2 developments that you all had already approved. If they're proposing a daycare center, we shouldn't propose a daycare center. If they're having a medical office, we shouldn't have medical office. So we're looking at what makes sense from a market point of view and also from a community point of view. But we also need to understand what our neighbors are doing.
And out of the 42,000 square feet and change that you have slated for commercial, how much is the supermarket taking?
We were thinking about 20,000. 20 to 25,000 seems to be a good supermarket size.
Thank you. And so the other spaces, I guess, will be broken up accordingly based on tenant.
Correct.
And on the parking issue, I just want to touch on that for a second. Can you talk, and you probably cannot, no offense, to the pro forma and budget and as to how that parking gets budgeted? I'd like to better understand the difference between the market rate units and the affordable units, because my understanding is that HPD will not allow for the pro forma to absorb the cost of the parking. So I just want to have a conversation about that and get a little bit better understanding about how the parking is being absorbed in the budget of the project.
Again, I can't speak to that, but I will ask the client to speak to that.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it. Why don't you take the microphone? We'll take a 30-second recess. We're going to take a 30-second recess, and we'll be right back. Thank you. I got lucky with the microphone. They like me today. Having a few technical issues. Just working it out.
No.
Oh, I'm blessed. I'm the only one. The only one I need.
Were all of them turned off?
No, it is not. Sorry, guys. Well with it. Yeah, I think exactly. The electric stove. You can relax. It'll be fine.
Okay.
We'll bring you back. Sorry about that. What's that? So unless there's any more. Anybody have any more questions on this? Sarah, I'm going to have Commissioner Marine close the hearing on this. Commissioner Marine. We are going to close the hearing on this matter, and we're going to take a recess until we fix the microphones. We appreciate everyone's cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Have a great day.
Thank you. No, I'm the only one. It's weird. It's really weird. The anointed one. The anointed one.
What's happening? Orlando's coming after you.
The symbolism is rich.
Test, test.
Test, Zoom test.
Test. Is that working?
Test.
Yep.
I had that audio.
I'm fine. Test. No, it has to be green to be on.
Test.
I'm fine.
Zoom audio test.
Loud and clear.
Hello?
Okay. Let me turn it off then.
We're ready.
Okay, I'm speaking into the microphone. And just confirming that we're ready to go. Okay, so first of all, my apologies to our special guests, members of the public, applicant teams for the delay in today's hearing. Periodically, we have a technical glitch here at the City Planning Commission.
Know that you're like a 20 seconds behind. We hear you.
Turn the thing off because we don't actually need to hear the room. I think everybody can hear voices in the room. We just don't need to hear the feedback. Okay.
As noted before, we closed the hearing on 2185 Coyle Street. Thank you, Commissioner Marin, for stepping in to do that. We did not have members of the public wishing to testify on that item. And now we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda. Madam Secretary, if you could please call calendar 14.
Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 14, 854 Fifth Avenue Members Club, CD8 C240349 ZSM, public hearing in the matter of an application for a zoning special permit concerning 854 Fifth Avenue Members Club.
Okay, thank you very much. We are going to invite up the applicant team, which includes Sean Rubenheimer, Jessica Parsley, Peter Penoyer, and Valerie Campbell. And thanks to all of you for working with us on our tech issues too. Let's see how your microphones work. And
I think so.
Perfect.
Good morning. My name is Valerie Campbell. I'm a partner with Kramer Levin, and we're land use counsel to the owner of 854 Fifth Avenue. I'm joined today by Peter Penoyer from Peter Penoyer Architects, Sean Rubenheimer, and Jessica Parsley, the owner's representatives from Grafton Limited in London. 854 Fifth Avenue, let's see if we're going, is an individual landmark and a contributing building in the Upper East Side Historic District. It was constructed in 1905 and designed by Warren and Wetmore in the Beaux-Arts style. It is a highly significant landmark. Its architects also designed the New York City Yacht Club and the Grand Central Station. The house was built for R. Livingston Beekman, but its most notable resident was Emily Thorne Vanderbilt Sloan White. In 1946, the house was sold to the Republic of Yugoslavia for use as a mission. The current owner purchased the house in 2022. The project includes a comprehensive restoration and repair program for the landmark, which is seriously deteriorated after many years of neglect and a devastating fire in 2018. The picture you see on the left shows this damage. The landmark is located in an R10 residential district and also in the Special Park Improvement District. The owner is seeking a Section 74-711 special permit to establish a members club, which is a use group 8 commercial use not permitted in a residential district. The club will also include 3 guest rooms, which are classified as a use group 5 hotel because the intent is to allow for transient occupancy, which is also not permitted in a residential district. The project also requires the special permit to waive the rear yard regulations to allow for an extension of the existing stair bulkhead. The landmark is flanked by 2 large apartment buildings. To the north at 2 East 67th Street, there's a 1927 apartment building designed by Rosario Candela. To the south at 1 East 66th Street, there is a 1948 apartment building that it was also designed by Rosario Candela. Immediately to the rear of the building is a former townhouse that is now the Japanese Consulate General. There are 3 conditions for any Section 74-711 special permit. With respect to the continuing maintenance requirement, the owner will execute a restrictive declaration that will condition the issuance of the certificate of occupancy for the proposed uses on the completion of the restoration work required to bring the building back to a sound first-class condition. The restrictive declaration will also require this owner and any future owner to commit to a program of periodic inspections and maintenance in perpetuity. With respect to the second condition, Landmarks has issued a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed work, and the third condition is not applicable here because it relates to the number of dwelling units. The project includes a comprehensive restoration plan which addresses the deteriorated conditions. This will include restoration of all the original masonry and metal work. The limestone areaway and stairs will be rebuilt and will incorporate an ADA lift that's nested behind retracting stone stairs. Originally built at full depth, the rear of the building includes unusual design features, some of which are visible from an alley on East 66th Street. The restoration of this facade includes removing non-original elements, masonry, and metal repair, and recreating the original limestone balusters. The existing and proposed elevations, which are upside down, but or at least on their sides, identify the significant steps in the restoration. On the left, the entire shaded area, including the main cornice, must be replaced as the integrity of that stone was completely undermined in the process of extinguishing the fire. On the right, you can see we're adding a new entrance door that matches the original design intent. Next one. Not. This, no. Oh, there it did. Okay, slowly. Here you can see the restoration of the south elevation, which faces too many, in the middle of the block. Let's go back. The new extension on the top, which you can see, this is being very slow. Well, you can see the extension on the top in the plan, and that includes a code-compliant egress stair and elevator. I don't know. All right. Let's see.
Looks like the slides have a mind of their own.
Apparently. They're saying I'm not fast enough on this presentation.
We'll make sure that you have sufficient additional time here. So
let's see. Okay. Well, since these are not cooperating, okay. But we have to go back to slide number 10. Okay. Well, so this is the 11. So this is showing you the inside of the building. It's not subject to Landmark's jurisdiction, but there are very significant interiors that are rare survivals from the Gilded Age that have completely intact painted and metal leaf decorative surfaces, and we are planning to restore all of these significant interiors. Next. Here you see, we have a next, it's not.
Next slide, please.
Okay. Here you see, that is the back slide. Yeah, they need to go to 12.
The presenter would like you to advance to slide 12, please.
And those are our interiors again. And we just you briefly saw a comparison of the existing and restored Fifth Avenue facade. Sure. That's the one. Okay, so this slide is showing a comparison of the existing and the facade after it is restored. Next slide. There are two special permit findings that must be satisfied. The first relates to the bulk waivers, which must have a minimal adverse effect on the structures and open space in the vicinity of the landmark in terms of scale, location, and access to light and air. The second finding relates to the use waiver, where the Commission must find that the proposed use will have minimal adverse effects on the conforming residential and community facility uses in the surrounding area. Next. This slide, and it's a little bit hard to see, but there's the blue tinted area at the rear of the building shows the enlarged elevator and stair bulkhead that requires a rear yard waiver. This is a minimal encroachment behind the existing bulkhead that will allow for the addition of an ADA compliant elevator and stair bulkhead. Next. This is the enlarged bulkhead in plan. It extends approximately 11 feet behind the existing historic stair bulkhead. And because of its location and the historic configuration of the building, it will not have any or at most a minimal adverse impact on the surrounding buildings. Both the existing and the proposed rear yard condition is typical of many Upper East Side blocks where historic apartment buildings and townhouses extend into the required rear yard. Next. This section shows the use waiver. The landmark will be converted in its entirety to a use group 8 non-commercial or private members club with 3 use group 5 transient guest rooms. The guest rooms are shown in red. The private hotel use is blue, and the shared space is sort of purpley with the speckled colors. Next, the land use map shows that the area surrounding the club is predominantly residential and institutional with occasional commercial use, which is shown in red here. Next slide. There are more than 15 private members clubs in the Upper East Side Historic District, and 12 of these are located in residential districts. Many of these clubs are considerably larger than 854 Fifth, and in addition to these clubs, there are numerous hotels, cultural facilities, and museums that are located wholly or partially in residential districts. Next. The club will be operated in a discrete manner that will ensure that it does not have any adverse impact on its residential neighbors. It will not be an event space for wedding or bar mitzvahs, and it will not be operated as a nightclub or high occupancy use. In contrast to many other existing members clubs, hotels, and cultural institutions, the operations at 854 Fifth will be much more limited in terms of capacity, and private events for non-members will not be allowed. The 3 proposed guest rooms will not create any significant impacts in terms of the number of guests, but the presence of the guest rooms will help ensure that the activities in the members club will not create any disturbance for its guests or for the neighbors. Next. Throughout the approval process, we've conducted a robust outreach to our neighbors, elected officials, and preservation groups. We are committed to open the interior of the building to the public on an annual basis with Open House New York, and we're exploring an additional annual opening with Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts, the Landmarks Conservancy, and the Bard Graduate Center. We thank you for your attention to the presentation, and we're all available for questions.
Great, thank you very much. Beautiful building. And just wanted to see if you could just say a little bit more about, we saw the changes to restore the building to its historic condition. Can you talk a little bit more about the continuing maintenance program with the Landmarks Commission?
Right. The continuing maintenance program, first, in order to get a temporary certificate of occupancy for any of these special permit uses, we have to complete a comprehensive restoration program that's outlined in the restrictive deck that Landmarks has already reviewed and permitted. And the completion of that program will be a condition for the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. Thereafter, every 7 years now, we have to have an architect who is experienced in historic preservation and accepted by the commission, conduct an inspection of the building, issue a report to the Landmarks Commission, and the owner, whether it's this owner or a future owner, will be required to implement any work that is identified as necessary to keep the building in sound first-class condition.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Any other questions? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We don't have further questions for the applicant team, so thank you for being with us. And now we are going to call on a member of the public, Zeynep Turan from Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts, I assume. Okay.
Zeynep, you should be able to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Give us 1 second. Let's make sure that we have enough volume to be able to hear you. But yes, we do hear you a little bit. Hold on.
Can you begin?
Yes, I can. Chair Gorednik, Commissioners, my name is Zeynep Turan, speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side. I'm here on Zoom to testify in support of the application for a Section 74711 special permit on behalf of 854 Fifth Avenue Members Club.
Okay, let me pause you for 1 second. I'm very sorry. We're having a little trouble hearing you. No surprise today based on the technical issues that we've had so far this morning, but just give us 1 second.
Okay.
You know what? I think we just fixed it. So if you wouldn't mind starting from the top, now I think we're going to be able to hear you loud and clear.
Of course.
Sorry about that.
No problem. My name is Zeynep Turan, and on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side, I'm here on Zoom to testify in support of the application for a Section 74711 special permit on behalf of 854 Fifth Avenue Members Club. Friends Preservation Committee commends the applicant for their thoughtful and well-considered approach to restoration of this French Beaux-Arts building and converting it into private members club with 3 private guest rooms. Friends believes the proposal is an improvement over the building's past neglect and will have a significant impact on preserving this landmark. Friends supports the proposed restorative work, including replacement of limestone, brickwork, metalwork, and openings. This work will significantly enhance the building's condition and contribute to its long-term preservation. We have no objections to the proposed bulk modifications, such as expanding the stair bulkhead, adding a 1-story rear yard extension, enclosing portions of the interior courtyard, and installing a skylight, as these modifications will not be visible from public thoroughfares. We also support the proposed waivers for rear yard requirements and court and distance to lot line requirements for the hotel room windows. These modifications are appropriate and in keeping with the character of the building and our historic district. While we support the applicant's proposed modifications, we also recognize that the proposed change in building use and the introduction of 24/7 operations may potentially impact the neighborhood. To address these concerns, we urge the applicant to implement effective noise control measures and ensure that the building's operations are conducted in a manner that respects the rights of neighbors. Additionally, we urge the applicant to strictly adhere to the continuing maintenance program that will safeguard the building's historic character and preserve its value for future generations. We are thrilled to witness the restoration of this architectural landmark to its 20th century grandeur. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us. Okay. I do not see other members of the public wishing to testify on this item. Madam Secretary, does that comport with your understanding as well?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. All right. So we will close the hearing on calendar number 14, and we will move on to our next and last public hearing of the day today. Would you introduce that one?
Borough of Queens, calendar number 15, 4939 Van Dam Street mapping. Yeah. DD2 C220305 MM2 public hearing in the matter of an application for a city map amendment concerning 4939 Van Dam Street mapping.
Great, thank you, and I'm going to welcome Raymond Levin to the podium. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I think it's still morning, so good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Raymond Levin. I'm with the law firm of Herrick Feinstein, and we are counsel. I'm of counsel to Herrick Feinstein. I think the technical difficulty has affected me. We represent JPB Realty Company and JPB Enterprises, which are seeking to acquire the city. Let me click this. Click. No, come on. There we go. Seeking to acquire a city-owned lot, which is located between their property, which fronts on Van Dam Street, and is also surrounded by the entrance ramp to the Queens Midtown Expressway. The city-owned lot is currently mapped as part of Gale Avenue. The properties are located in an M21 district, surrounded by other non-residential uses. Across Van Dam Street is a Tesla dealership and public storage facility. To the north are Dunkin' Donuts and a gas station. To the south is the 135-foot wide expressway in Borden Avenue, and to the east is the ramp. The applicant-owned property has two warehouses on it. The one to the north is 2 stories, 10,000 square feet on the first floor and 4,000 on the second floor. The warehouse to the south is 4,200 square feet. Both first floors, all the first floors are currently rented to food preparation and delivery services. The second floor has JPB's offices and some administrative space for the tenants. In between the two warehouses is an open area that's currently used for some parking and loading facilities. The city-owned property is overgrown, trash-strewn lot, which at times is inhabited by squatters. We are seeking to have the city property taken from the city map in order to purchase it. Should the commission and the city council agree to this and approve this application, mapping agreement will be required. The mapping agreement will include restrictions that DOT wants to set back from the ramp so that it can be repaired. It's Not currently, but at some point in the future, it may have to be repaired. And also it will incorporate restrictions on where we can put our HVAC and noise attenuation should the warehouses be redeveloped at some point. This is what JPB intends to do. Create a plaza on the city property. Use that for outdoor dining in association with conversion.
Mr. Levin, your time is up. So
Okay.
let me pose a question to you because I think it's consistent with what you're about to tell us too. So it's a demapping proposal to take off the map an area which is not active or used, overgrown area next to a service road through the LIE. And a proposal here to convert warehouse use related to this application to an outdoor to restaurant and to outdoor eating and drinking. So first question for me is, can you play this out for us a little bit? I mean, it's an unusual site. It's an unusual area for outdoor eating and drinking. It's right next to an entrance ramp. It's right next to the highway. Just lay it out for us. This is certainly the demapping question is. It feels like anything would be a better use here, but I do want to ask you about the restaurant use right next to the ramp and how exactly you picture this playing out. We see it on the image, but tell us a little bit more.
Okay. Well, first of all, our JPB, the family behind it is the Barry family. Some of you may recall Ray Barry Pizza in Manhattan. They own a number of spots and garishly painted them in the colors of the Italian flag, if you may recall. So they've been in this business for over 40 years. This site is unique, and that may be its drawing power. Many of you may remember Roberto's Pizzeria in East Williamsburg from 15, 20 years ago. There was nothing around it. It was in the middle of nowhere. It didn't even have its name on the door, yet became a place where people wanted to go. Outdoor dining in the city is going to be restricted. City just passed restrictions on outdoor sidewalk cafes. So there are going to be many fewer of those. And there were several restaurants in this part of Queens that closed during the pandemic that had outdoor seating. So we have outdoor seating. We have a unique spot run by people who've run restaurants for a number of years. The ramp is not heavily trafficked. Actually, the traffic on the ramp is mostly in the morning hours because it enters the westerly Queens Midtown Tunnel. So you're heading to the city. So it's a morning, and our client intends to plant trees along the perimeter of the eating area that will visually and to some extent block out noise from the ramp, which isn't all that noisy. I think Van Dam Street is probably noisier than the ramp, and that's sort of the idea. They're going to start small. I think I had a drawing that showed. I think we're having the same problem that we had with the other one. We're missing one. But the area that's being converted to support the outdoor space is the warehouse, the 4,200 square foot warehouse on the south, or I guess on the right hand on this image, and a small area on the left. That will be the entrance and have restrooms. So that's what they're starting with. The main warehouse in the middle will remain a warehouse for the time being. I think unless you...
No, that's it. Well, let me now ask you about that entry area and also the access to the restaurant from Van Dam Street. The area that you have depicted on this slide, where it says entry, bar area, and restrooms. That's the entrance to the
back. To get to the
restaurant. That's where
yes, correct. To get to the outdoor space.
The dynamic for pedestrians to access that point across Van Dam Street. What does that look like? You had a slide which it didn't suggest that there was any crossings, crosswalks, etc.
There's a crosswalk at Borden Avenue, which on this drawing would be to the right. There's a crossing there, and the other crossing is further north on Hunters Point Avenue, which is not on this drawing. The nearest subway is on Queens Boulevard, which is about half a mile away for people who would walk here, and that's the provisions.
What's the closest east-west crossing to get you across Van Dam Street to be able to access the site? You have the crosswalk that you have on
at Borden Avenue.
Borden Avenue. That's it. Okay, so I see it.
Yeah. And there's a traffic light and yeah.
I'm looking at Borden Avenue now, and I'm looking at Borden Avenue now. Yeah, it's great.
No.
Cannot hear what I'm doing? Got mad.
Thank you, Chair. So, we were concerned. We asked questions about the condition behind the ramp, and
I'm looking at it now, and I see that under the ramp is really an open area that has a sidewalk that is adjacent to Borden Avenue. So my question would be, what is it that's going to happen at the rear there to secure that area? Because now you have an area under the bridge that's going to become, the ramp that's going to become sort of accessible, and you can get back there somehow. What is contemplated to enclose the back of that area there?
Okay, so here's the image I guess we're talking about. Borden Avenue is on the right, and it runs underneath the ramp that joins the highway. And currently, if you wanted to, you could follow to the left around the side of our smaller warehouse and get into that back area. Obviously, at that location, we would close it off. We'd have a fence of some sort. Any other questions?
Hello? Am I coming across? Okay. Good to see you, Ray. Thanks for coming.
Commissioner? Thank you.
Mr. Levin, can you tell us about any noise attenuation measure that will be taken? It doesn't, that particular picture makes it seem like a fairly unattractive place to sit and eat or anything else, both from a potential air quality viewpoint, an environmental viewpoint, environmental lead, potentially, but also from a noise perspective. Can you tell me what you might be doing and what the analysis shows about that? Okay.
First of all, this isn't where anyone's going to be sitting, but in any case. In terms of air quality, we did a study at grade level at the back of that sort of parking area between the warehouses. And we, I guess, met or didn't meet, I'm not sure how you say it, the national ambient air quality standards. So we passed that. In terms of noise, as I said, the noise off the ramp is really not that much. The traffic there is rather sparse. At the peak, at 8 o'clock in the morning, there are like 3 cars every minute, which isn't a heck of a lot. And we intend to have some plantings to screen that off. Is it noisier than where I live in Dumbo, where there are outdoor dining underneath the Manhattan Bridge, which has trains? It's probably quieter than that. You know, how it affects people, you're only going to be there for an hour or two. It's not like you're there all the time. So, you know, is it not Riverdale? No. It's a noisier area, but is it noisier than other parts of the city where there are restaurants, where there are a number of sidewalk cafes, whatever? So it's not going to affect your hearing like a rock concert.
Yeah, thank you for that, but I just wanted to make sure we're not creating a receptor that is going to lead to complaints about the activity.
Well, we can go back to what's surrounding this. We can go back to that land use map. At the moment, at least, there isn't anything surrounding it. So, you know, it's blocked off on 2 sides by roads, and on the other sides, across Van Dam and whatever, there are commercial uses. So I don't, at least currently, until this neighborhood gentrifies, it's okay.
And are you planning to, in your acquisition, to lease it from the city or buy it from the city?
Purchase. Okay. We're making an investment and we're purchasing it. The environmental review studied the fact that would increase the floor area we would have, but because of parking regulations, which we've heard a lot about this morning, you really can't utilize very much of that additional floor area. So, so yes, we're looking to purchase it.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Commissioner? Vice Chair Apples?
You can hear me,
I certainly could hear everybody.
Okay, thank you. 5.
Uh-oh.
Plan shot of this.
Is this, I don't know which one is 5. Is this one what you want?
That's 4.
That's 4? Okay. And this must be 5. Correct, right.
Yeah. Not on our.
And very lower right-hand corner.
Concourse. I just wanted to know, frankly, the outdoor portion, which is subject of hearing, and then a portion of the warehouse inside to the restaurant. I'm just curious, what's going to take place in the rest of the warehouse?
Well, the rest of the warehouse currently is leased to food services. For the best known is Hungry Panda. I don't know whether you get stuff delivered, but they are operating out of here. So are 2 other companies. They're going to stay there for the time being. I think the notion is to start up this restaurant and the backyard and see if it catches on. It'll probably be a bigger indoor restaurant. Our client, besides having all of those pizzerias that under the Ray Barry standard, also had sit-down restaurants. So it's starting slow. I mean, they're you know, the concerns that have been raised here about whether people will come to this location. I think while our client is sure that they will, and it'll be terrific, and it'll be wonderful, but is not, is not doing a 10,000-foot indoor restaurant at the moment.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Levin. We appreciate it. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And senior members of the public wishing to be heard on 4939 Van Dam. So we will close the hearing on.
Sorry, Chair.
And I will turn to you, Madam Secretary.
Then I can call Gail again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, Mr. Levin, don't go anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere.
Commissioner Osorio has a question.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much. Thank you for the presentation. I had a couple of quick questions. One question. Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? You can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Commissioner, do you mind speaking a little bit louder so we can hear you?
Yes, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? You can't hear me? No? Can't hear me now? You cannot hear me? You cannot hear me?
Give us 1 second.
I got no place to go. It's fine.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
How many years has it been?
That worked here?
At city planning.
Oh, city planning? 1970, let me see. 55 years, something like that? Broadcast to the world? Yeah, okay, good. All right.
Commissioner Osorio?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Commissioner Osorio, I can hear you. Like, I think
Oh.
folks online can hear you, but the room can't hear you.
Yeah, no, I know. Thank you.
Commissioner Osorio?
Yes, can you hear me?
Perfect, yes, please.
Yes? I can barely hear you.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. So please.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for confirming that. Thank you. So just a few questions. The first question is, I'm wondering if you can respond a little bit to the comments that we received or that you received from the community board. They have a couple very specific comments there that I would just like to give you an opportunity to respond.
Well, the first comment was they want to see this remain in city ownership, so that's for you to decide. Obviously, having it in private ownership puts it on the tax rolls. You're going to get a payment for it, and it's going to be put to use. Right now, it's a vacant, overgrown lot, which unfortunately has become a place where the unhoused, I think is the current terminology, end up coming, and then our client has to call the police, and then they come, and social services, all that. So it has some drawbacks. In terms of the question about sustainability in terms of water runoff and things like that, we intend to pave the plaza with permeable paving tiles. So I don't think it'll be any worse than it is today. And then the question about ozone layers and trees and carbon dioxide, we intend to plant trees along the border of our property, and they will be trees that are endemic to the city. So I think those are the things the community board raised, as I recall.
Thank you. That's useful. If you don't mind sharing some of that in writing, I know you had already referenced the intent to increase vegetation to as a noise mitigation strategy. I would love to understand exactly sort of like what would be the layout and kind of like a little more detail in terms of what you just discussed. And thank you for commenting on the permeability. I am also very interested in that. The last question has to do with the fact that the site is within the IBC, and you've already referenced this in some way, but I want to ask if you can explicitly discuss what is your contribution to this industrial zone. You've referenced gentrification. You've talked about when this gentrifies and things like that as part of your rationale, and I'm a little sort of like concerned or with the impact that this may have on neighborhood character, and particularly sort of like the potential to increase industrial jobs here rather than replace them. So I'm wondering if you can just say a little bit about, from your point of view, what is the contribution to the IBC, and particularly if you can expand a little more on what you've already discussed in terms of the relationship with the existing warehouse and the extent to which there could be potential secondary displacement in the area as a result of this action.
I think my mentioning of gentrification was an aside, and really not something that we expect in this neighborhood, at least not in the immediate future. In terms of being in the IBZ, we have warehouses. They were empty until COVID. The people who came forward to rent them were the food service companies. So we didn't dissuade anyone who had a use that was more manufacturing, although the use that's in there now does employ a lot of people, basically food delivery service folks. In terms of contributing to the IBZ, we're not marketing this as for manufacturers. We have our current people who are renting, and we hope to have a thriving restaurant and employ people.
Thank you for your response. Do you mind reminding me how many jobs do you anticipate are going to result from this action?
I don't know.
Okay. Is that perhaps something that you can respond to us later in writing? I would like to know what is the impact on economic development in terms of what you're proposing.
I certainly can find out about how many jobs are currently by our tenants if they are willing to share that with us. In terms of the future, I can get you a number, but it's years away, and who knows. So, but I can certainly ask our client about that, but I'm not sure how much you could rely on it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that and encourage you to take a look into this. This is certainly something important to take into account at this point. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner. The question. All right, now, Commissioner Levin, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Good. Thank you. Okay, now we'll close the hearing on calendar 15. I'll turn to you, Madam Secretary, for any final business announcements, etc.
We do want to go back.
Okay, we neglected to do that at the top of the meeting. Would you like to introduce this item?
We are going to add on the resolution scheduling this for public.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the resolutions scheduling December 4. It's been seconded by Commissioner Marin. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. There is no other business before the Commission for the public meeting, but I do have some public information to share. For those of you who were unable to or did not wish to testify, You can submit written testimony online by selecting this hearing on the NYC Engage portal, through DCP's website, or by mailing your comments to City Planning Commission, Calendar Information Office, 120 Broadway, 31st floor, New York, New York, 10271. The time is 12:32.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you, commissioners. Thank you, members of the public. Thank you to our applicants. I appreciate your patience with us through some technical difficulties today. We'll see if we can get those resolved. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned. Yeah.